thanks for visiting the sponsor session. I know sponsor sessions are mostly boring and they want to try to sell something. I can achieve hopefully one thing, it will not be boring. So, how do you like the PowerShell conference so far? Good? Great. Yeah. So, my name is Michael Seidl. Maybe someone know me already as an MVP since 2015, also doing a lot of automation and my blog, Tech Guy, or GitHub scripts and so on. I'm doing consulting since, automation consulting since more than 10 years. I founded Automator in 2015, so a little time ago. Usually with the idea to have a web frontend for System Center Orchestrator. Who knows System Center Orchestrator? Wow, who's still using it? Okay, at least someone. So, in the meantime, System Center Orchestrator, we adopted the product to have also PowerShell and Azure Automation and System Center SMA. I'm not sure if someone uses still SMA, but you can do it also with Automator. So we are front-end for those automation engines. The agenda for today, a quick introduction what Automator does, then we hit to a demo, we see a few examples, what is capable of, what you can do with it. At the end, the license, the community download, and at the last point for today, how to win our prizes. So that's, you need to sit here until the end. So how Automator works. So first of all, you need to build your automation. You write your PowerShell scripts, your System Center Orchestrator runbooks, your Azure Automation runbooks. You have some initialized data, input parameters. That's a usual PowerShell script. You have your automation and maybe some response back or return data. And then Automator comes, you can create a service, build a form, configure your questions, can configure an approval workflow if needed, so someone can request any access, someone needs to approve, and then the automation is triggered. And you can configure role-based access, so these forms can be viewed by a group of users, or you can delegate those to a few users. Then the user can start the request, so he's filling out the answers, he's starting the request. When configured, they are waiting for the approval. And at the end, the automation is triggered. So the PowerShell script is triggered, the Azure Automation runbook is triggered, or the Orchestrator runbook is triggered. And in the end, you get a return back from this automation to the portal. So that's the main idea. Of course, why should you do this? First of all, to increase security and your quality. So you have the possibilities, for example, for your service desk, to remove them as application admins, as domain admins, as Office 365 admins, whatever. So you can build simple tasks to assign a license, to add create resource groups or whatever. And you don't need to have those much application admins anymore. And of course, increase quality. Every one of you loves to write PowerShell scripts, so they're always doing the same. If you do not change anything in the script, they always run the same way. So that's the quality. Each task will be executed the same way. The result is always the same. And of course, why do we all like automation? Because it saves time. So some of, maybe at least me and maybe some of you are lazy and like to automate, so they do not need to do so much, so they like to automate. So we save time. And of course, we need to save money, so we make sure that our IT department is not paid or doing all the daily routines anymore, so you can delegate those and run those automations. And at the end, our users and our IT staff is happy. So let's head over to the demo. We're here on our demo server. First of all, we just see how all this works together. So we have a simple script to add a user to a group, a PowerShell script. So how the script looks like, it has some input parameters. So what do I need as an input parameter? The user, the group, and a comment optionality. So beside all those error handling and so on, the main part of the PowerShell script is to add AD group member, identity group, and identity C user. So we run input parameter user group, and then the command line is add AD group member. That's our PowerShell script, and now we will see how to build a service. So we create a new service named PSConf add user to group. Also description, we can define a service group. Nope, we have one specially for today, PSConf. You can configure an image, a language, and so on, but we want to see how all this works together. So we created the name, we selected the service group, and now we want to select the automation. So in our case, we want to use PowerShell for our automation. So we select PowerShell, and here we select the same script you saw before, add user to a group, and that's it. What you saw in the script is that we had the input parameters user, group, and comment. And with those input parameters, you can configure the questions. So now we enter a nice question, choose user, without typo, of course. It is required. And in this case, it would make sense not to have a text question, so if someone needs to put in the username. So it would make sense to have a picker to select of all my Active Directory users. So we switch over and have an LDAP query, and the query is object class equals user, and we want to see the name, and as a table, a quick test, and we get all the name, all the users from our Active Directory. The same for the group, so this nice question, choose group, also required. The same, not the text, it should be an LDAP query, and we want to have object class equals group. And we want to see also the name and a test, and we get all the groups in our Active Directory. The last question we need to configure is the comment. It stays a simple comment. It is not required, and it will be a text question. Save. Okay. And that's it. So we have our PowerShell script. We configured our service, and now we can consume it, so the user can start the request. So we have our PSConf, we have add user to group, and that's the result. So we have the result, a user picker, we can search for our users, then also for the group, Automator admins, yeah. We selected the user, we selected the group, we can add a comment, and that's it. We click finish. And now the PowerShell script is executed in a service user context, not in the user of my user, instead of a context of the service user. So the users which are consuming those services do not need the right to have add a user to a group, to create a user, to connect to Office 365 or something like this. Of course, this is a simple form a simple service to add a user to a group. What would make sense to select only groups that the user is not already a member of? Of course, you can do it with the PowerShell, check if the user is in it. If not, okay, then do nothing. If the user is not in it, you can put in the user. So, but why do not show only groups the user is not a member of? So just do a copy and paste to avoid any typos. What we can do here is that we extend our LDAP query to say, give me all groups where the user we selected above is not a member of. So we select here the user English name, the brackets, and save. So what we have done now is that we just change the LDAP query to only get groups where the user is not already a member of. So if I select this user, this is a list where the user is not a member of. So we can double check. For example, we choose the Dean F here, and he's a member of, for example, administrators, and you do not see those groups here. So you can build your forms and reference from previous questions and to enhance your forms. The same is for remove a user from a group. So we select once again our first one, and here you see only groups where the user is not a member of. So that's an example on how you can consume previous answers directly in the form and to manipulate the queries in the next question. We also have an example to have the question type a SQL server, so SQL test. This is mostly used for example, for user onboarding most of the companies have their organization data, so location, departments, and so on, in an external org management system. So hopefully, or mostly, in the SQL database. So we have here an example and have some tables with all our countries. So when you see this, Austria, Germany, United States, and then we have our locations in each of those countries. Vienna, Berlin, New York, Chicago, and we have our departments related to our locations. Now we want to have a simple picker to select the country, to select the location, then to select the department. So how to do this? We create a service, we select the automation, we choose the same add user to group just to have a few questions, and we get our question. So the first one will be a location, and we want to have this a SQL query. The SQL server is localhost. The database is, Automator help. And the query is select star from country. And the authentication. Now you can select what columns you want to see and what columns you want to send to the automation. A quick test, and we get the result, Austria, Germany, United States. So the next question will be the location. So we want to see from the country we selected above, all the locations which are stored in our database. So also a SQL query. The database is once Automator help. The query is select star from country, but we do not type in the country here, so we consume the previous result, and that's the previous question. Configure the, second, this needs to be changed AT, so we have configure the send columns. Nope. See, location. Was it location? Yeah. Localhost. And this is. Yes, I saw it, thanks. I prepared it, but I copied without a space. So where, what was the column? Country code equals, and then we consume the previous one, and we select what we want to see. We want to see everything, and we want to send the country or the location name to the automation. So let's stay at this one to not spend too much time here. Have a unique name. We do PSConf, and now we save it. And now we should see the SQL test in our service group. Now we select the location. Okay, he wants to be in Austria. And then we see the departments or the locations in this country. If we change the before, so we want to have it in the US, then we see Chicago, New York. So you can consume, it's just an example on how to use those advanced queries to consume the previous result and to see all, and to manipulate the next query for this one. This is mostly an example for user onboarding, so to consume all those locations from external HR systems with SQL Server. We also have different question types, for example, PowerShell. We have a demo in a few seconds. I just want to show you a few examples on how user onboarding can look like. So most of the use cases our customers do with Automator and automation is the user onboarding and user offboarding. So that's mostly the main case, the first case, and then the service desk task or any Asia task or license and so on. So we have a simple user onboarding. This is an example, first name, last name, location, manager, entry date, and the hardware. So when I see the location, that's organizational units from our system. I can select the manager, a user picker from our Active Directory, select an entry date. Does we need a hardware? Yes, and then you can see you have dynamic forms. So depending on previous answers or checkboxes or whatever, you can display or hide questions. So I can select the hardware, I want a notebook, do I need a monitor? Then the next question comes in, I need more than 2, and then I need to enter a reason. So that's an example on how to use dynamic forms in a user onboarding. A different one, user onboarding looks like this is some of our customers. For example, you also can use regular expressions for your questions, mostly used for telephone numbers to make sure that they are entered correctly. So you can directly control in the service the entered values and make sure that they are correct. Of course, you can do it in the PowerShell script beyond, later on, but a little bit complex if the user type in any style of numbers or the numbers in any style. So if you make sure that they enter the correct value, you're a lot easier to automate all those stuff. So that's the next one. And one of our latest customers, I'm not sure if when you do user onboarding, who is using template users. I know it's not the best idea to use a template user, a reference user, because if it is in the company for 10 years, you have mostly more rights or groups than anyone else. But besides that this process is not good, a lot of customers still doing it or maybe want to move away from it but need a solution to use it for a while. So what we did here, of course, yes, this is a German one, but I will just translate it. You can select the reference user, so the customer decided to have still the reference user, and you can decide if you want to have the group selection from the reference user. So you can select all the groups the reference user is in, which should be used for the new one, and additionally can select all the new groups from the Active Directory. So that was just a use case one of our latest customers have done with user onboarding and related to reference user. Next thing is, I mentioned it at the beginning, that you can also configure an approval. So we have a service configured to request a software from SCCM or Endpoint Manager, what the latest name is. And we configured an approval workflow. It is a single approve or deny, and we configured the manager. So when the user is requesting a software, the actual manager from Active Directory gets a note and say, hey, you need to approve or deny. Of course, you can select multiple users directly from your Active Directory, or you can configure percentage and select, I don't know, 5 users and say, okay, you need to reach a percentage of 45%. And when 2 or 3 users approve, then the automation is triggered. So that's the use case of this one. We switched to a different browser. So that's the browser of my test user, Jan Mike. He can start a request to request a software. He can select a software from SCCM or Endpoint Manager database directly. So that's also in SQL query. He wants Notepad++. So this is a free license. But when he selects Adobe Photoshop, which needs a license, then he is asked for the reason why do you need that license. And he is using a reasonable command. And that's it. So now the automation is not triggered. When I switch back to my browser, I, as his manager, should receive a task to approve a software. It should be the first one. Nope, that's my test from. Nope, that's it. Or is it this one? This is. So this is the approval. I see who has requested, what has he requested, and now I can add a comment and say approve or deny. And on the approve, the automation is triggered. Of course, I get a direct link also to that approval. So if the manager gets an email, he doesn't need to log in and search for the request and look like, so he can directly send him a direct link to the request, and he only needs to approve or deny on this one. What we saw until now is that when you start a request, you can directly select your request, you have your favorite services. There's also an option to start a request for your team members. So we can switch this on to see those team members. Now I see under my team all my users where I am the manager in Active Directory. And now I can, on start the service, select the target user. So now I can start a request for Jasmine, for example. But for those examples, what I can use is an out-of-office reply. So he was sick, he forgot to set his out-of-office reply, whatever. What would be the usual case? Someone needs to call the IT or sends a ticket. Someone needs to sign in to the mailbox, whatever, Office 365, and needs to set the out-of-office reply. In this case, you can delegate this to the manager. So the manager can directly log into the portal, start a request for Jasmine, set an out-of-office reply, select a text, standard, workshop, or holiday, choose a type, is it immediately or is it planned, and then select the start and end date. In the background, there's a PowerShell script which is doing the out-of-office reply. And it doesn't matter if it's an on-premise Exchange or Office 365 or Google Mail or whatever. What's also possible is a lot of customers, we have one traveling agency, they have a lot of small locations, and the employees are switching between the locations 1 month in that, 1 month in the other location, and they need to find a solution to add the edit the Active Directory properties for the user. So there is a service to update the user details, and I selected Jasmine before, and I can select, for example, I want to change the address, and I see the actual values already, what is stored in the Active Directory. So those background text are the actual values in the Active Directory object. So that's also a way on how to use the team configuration to start the request for a team member. I switch that back to only start a request for ourselves. And now I want to show you, at the beginning I've told you that you also can use it with Azure Automation. We have a very useful case to Azure Automation Runbook, which is doing a calculation. So the script is very easy. We have 3 input parameters, 1, 2, and 3, and we sum these numbers and provide back the result. As I said, very useful, but to see the idea how this works. So we create a new service. It's named PSConfEU Azure. The same description, the service group, PSConf. And now automation, and in this case we select Azure Runbooks. We select the stored credentials, so we need an Azure app registration for this and configure this for our automation account. And now I can select the calculation runbook from Azure. It's the same as you saw before in the PowerShell way. So the runbook, or the Azure Automation Runbook, has 3 input parameters, an automation and the result. I have 3 numbers, that's it, and save. Now we try to run that service. So we do 1, 2, and 3. And finish. What you see here, we trigger and we forget, so we can start a different request, the next request. Azure is taking some seconds, hopefully not too long. So let's see the jobs. Yeah, runbook is queued. It is running and it is completed. So what I said at the beginning, you cannot only delegate those scripts and this automation, you also see the result of those automations. So everything what is triggered, you see who triggered it, when he triggered, and what was the result. In our case, Azure Automation did a calculation, and the result is 6, and it's correct. 1, 2, and 3 is 6. There is also a possibility to wait for the result. So we just configure this. Let me see, calc, PSConfEU calc. We have the advanced, and we have wait for the automation, a max of 200 seconds, and save. We do it once again. We start the Azure Automation Calc. Now it makes 2, 3, and 4. And we click Finish. And now we are waiting for the Azure Automation PowerShell runbook to be triggered, to be queued, to be running, and provide us any feedback. You can do this also with PowerShell, Orchestrator, Azure Automation. That doesn't make any difference. And the result is 9. So there are use cases that someone needs to wait until the automation is finished and you get a response back from your automation. I mentioned earlier that we have a PowerShell question type. So you can execute a PowerShell script and get a response back and see and can select of a list of response, for example. What we did with that is to assign an Office 365 license. So what is the use case? License. We select the user, Carsten, and we want to choose a license. What are we doing here is, in the background there's a PowerShell script talking with Graph API from Microsoft, gets all our SKUs from our Azure tenant, calculates how many licenses do I have, how many do I have available, and that's the list. And now I see Office 365 E3, I have 5 licenses, 5 are used, null available. The script in the background is very simple. So Graph API, stored credentials, have a list of nice names for the SKUs, and to build a PS object, the table, what you saw. So that's absolutely free what you can do with it. We just selected that we want to see the used license and the available license, and also to have the licenses available without any available licenses. But I can select Office 365 and then I can assign the license. And with that, you have the possibility to have each service which has an API to consume and to present anything to your users. Also an example is for our latest Azure services. Where are the Azure services? Here. All scripts you see here are on our GitHub repository. So right now we have around 50 plus free to use GitHub scripts to use immediately with Automator. Everything you saw right now is free on our GitHub. Also script to have a new Azure resource group. So the idea is to get a list of all your subscriptions, enter a resource group name, for example, resource group conf 2022, and to select the location, which data center do you want to create the resource group. Finish, and a few seconds later, we should see the resource group here. Or a few more seconds. So we create the resource group in here. And we can also then remove the resource group, assign roles. So we also have a solution to assign, we have it on the next page, assign Azure role. So we select the subscription, we select the resource group. Let's take the REST API. We select the user, which is mine, and we select the role. And these are all the roles you have available for your Azure resource group. In our case, we select the RTR pull. I need to select this one, and click Finish. In the end, the result should be that this resource group has now a role assigned for me. Access role, few role assignments, and my user now has the RTR pull request. So I consume all the information from Azure or from Office 365 and can delegate those information. The same, of course, to remove those information. We also have the Azure remove role assignment. So you get the user, you see all his assignments, and then remove it from Azure. And that's the use case of PowerShell script. So everything you can touch with it, request with PowerShell and has an API. You can ask for it to give me information and to present this to to the Automator portal. What else? Other use cases, what we have is, for example, Teams management. So to create teams, to remove owners, to add team members. A lot of customers do not want to provide the availability to the users to create their own teams or configure their members and owners. They want to have a control over those information. So someone needs to approve for a new team, otherwise the fifth soccer team or something like this is created, or cafe team. So they want to have a control over the team creation. And of course, they need a documentation who requested a team and who was approving it. So that's the main, so that's the idea. So to write the automation with Microsoft services, PowerShell, Azure Automation Orchestrator, to build your services and to delegate those to your users. So you can delegate each single service to a specific group or the whole service group itself. And if I'm a member of a specific group, then I see different services than a different user. So that's the idea. So now switch back to our presentation. License should be very simple. We have 4 different licenses. Automator is an on-premise product installed on a server with an IIS. We are counting all your Active Directory users, and that's how we decide what license do you need. This is also available on our webpage, so you can read this on our homepage. What's next? If you like the idea, you can visit our booth. We can do a demo. If you have any questions or something like this, just ask us or contact us after the PowerShell conference. You can get the license from our partners or from us, directly from us, from our shop. If you need help for your automation as well, our partners can help you. You can do it by yourself. We are all familiar with PowerShell, so it should be an easy way. Or you can ask us to help to define the process and to automate the processes. Last words. You can download Automator Portal for free. You can try it. There is no limitation beside the only limit is 2 services. There is no time limit, there is no functional limit, only limit is 2 services. And on github.com/automator you have all those free to use scripts where you can build your services. And at the very end, the most important thing is that on Thursday on the Park Theatre, you have the chance to you see the nice characters from Jasmine and myself and from our colleagues. You have the chance that you will get drawn as this comic character. So we have 3 attendees to get the chance to get automated. Sign up on automator.com PSConf and attend our session on Thursday, 9:45. We will draw the lucky winner. We also give away our base caps. And so make sure you will be there on Thursday. Any more questions? Yes.
When you were showing Azure, you showed also the Azure identities that you were using for the different services. How will this work on premise?
What do you mean on premise?
Are you using user accounts for the AD check, or can you use group managed service accounts? What are the specifications for this kind of stuff? Because that's all security related.
Yes. Yeah. The application itself is an IIS application. IIS has an application account, a service account, and all the scripts are first executed as this user. In the script itself, you can... The use of the application pool, yes. In the script itself, you can use key vaults from any vendors or stored XMLs or whatever to switch the credentials and to connect to different services. So in our case, for Graph API, we use HApp registrations and store those information as encrypted XML on the file system. But whatever you can do with PowerShell, So we had an example, KeyPass is available. Some customers using Azure Key Vault to get their credentials and then to use it in the automation.
The other question I have is if Automator would be accessible via an API as well.
Yes.
So, okay, so let's say you know your parameters and you just want to use Automator because you want everything to be the same, that you can access a service via
Yes.
API.
So every request can be accessed by an API. So start request, fill in the information. So JSON file as JSON format, push in. You can get the status of the request. You can approve or deny a request, and you can start a request by API. Yes.
Okay. And do you have a use case together with an IBM? Because the example with the groups, we are using only IDM for this cause because onboarding with that many users is just boring.
Yeah.
So we are using IDM where the groups are assigned automatically. The use case for this with Automator, you have?
We have customers using different IDMs, yes. The question is, where do you get the information that a user is coming, and where do you get the information what the user needs? Mostly from HR or from the manager of the user. So what we do here is to provide a front end to enter those informations. So our use case mostly is to bring that task away from the IT department. Because usually IT department is the last department who gets note when a new employee is coming. In the baddest way, the employee is first day at the building and the IT still doesn't know that the new user is coming. So that's the idea, to provide this information and to delegate those to the manager, to the HR. So if you need a user, an IT equipment, Active Directory, Office 365, dear manager, fill out this information. You can, usually you have this, the first name, last name already in your identity management or in your HR. So consume it, select the user and fill out the rest information. So what department or what use rights, what license does he need, whatever someone needs to tell us about the user. But we connect with IDMs and just get the information from the IDM but already in there. And also send it back to the IDM, for example. Welcome, please.
There's no built-in credential management.
No.
Only the application built-in.
Yes.
If I want to target SQL Server file service, I have to do all the handling in my script.
Yes.
Or what they would manage service. Yeah, but I have different services. I want to assign different credentials for my targets.
Yeah.
Not all within the script.
You do not need to store it plain text in the script. You can use the key vaults and so on. But yes, you have to do it in the PowerShell script, in the automation. Yes. Anything else? Question? No? Okay. I think we are finished. If no question, otherwise you can visit our booth or come out here after the session. But thank you very much for your time and enjoy the PSConf.